Energy, fossil fuels, wind, solar. Oh my! Did you know, Mike, that wind power and the environment, wind turbines do not produce emissions?
I didn't know that because I'm pretty sure that's not true.
I'm pretty sure it says it in a whole lot of articles that I've read, though.
So would emissions include landfilling of the blades in Iowa?
It doesn't do that?
Or manufacturing of the blades.
Yeah.
They don't talk about in those articles?
I don't know. I didn't read those articles. I'm sorry.
Well, they don't, but I knew that.
First, just a very special thank you to all who have supported me since the beginning of the journey of just shining a light on difficult things, on hard answers. Thank you so much for doing that. This is for you. I'm Matt Logan, the host of This Matters in Real Life. Oh, hey, stay tuned at the end of this. I'll give you some more information.
Mike, thanks for hanging out. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, Mike Marti, a Casson area resident, just a normal, everyday person.
And hanging out to my right,
Craig Goodwin. Thanks for tuning in.
It's very interesting because that's what everybody pushes, right? That these wind turbines, these solar panels, batteries in cars, and all these other things are zero emissions. They don't. I'm like, wait, what?
Zero footprint.
The first time I read that, I'm like, well, what?
Yeah.
How do they make them? How did they get there?
Yeah. And do they last forever?
How do they get rid of them?
Yep. So it's so interesting that they you hear, what is that called, the Green New Deal or something like that on the federal level, and that they're trying to push all these things through. And when you read these things, they exclude so much,
right?
And they have people try to believe that this is a certain way, and they're not looking at the entire picture. It blows my mind.
They're pushing their agenda.
And it's an agenda. Mike, do you know anything about energy?
I know a little bit about energy.
So help me understand some of this.
Well, as an electrical contractor for the last 20 years, we've been pretty involved in delivering energy safely to people. And, it's interesting because we've done, I have a small company, and we've added just our small company a pretty substantial amount of electrical load to the system. And when you look at things overall, at how much construction's happened over the years, but we haven't seen a whole lot of generation come online. So we don't have that excess base load availability. That's why we're seeing these brownouts when things get cold or hot, or, when the weather changes, Texas freezes, and eventually Minnesota will too, because we don't have an energy plan in this state.
Yeah.
We've got all kinds of what we would, is labeled as green energy, even though I would say that all energy right now is pretty green. I don't think you can find a real dirty form of energy at this point, because even coal is pretty darn clean right now.
Anymore.
Yeah, and you mentioned Texas. I did some reading probably when it kind of came on my personal radar. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago, I suppose. And I read about Texas. They have a all natural gas, zero emissions plant, right? Have you heard about that?
Zero emission natural gas.
So here's why they call it. So here's why they call it that I read about. Now, this has been a few years ago, so I might not get the details right. So they're catching the carbon through these big, huge, massive filters.
Okay.
Right? And that carbon then powers the plant. So they're catching the emissions and they're powering the plant itself with those emissions.
Is this called Perpetual Motion? That's new to me.
I thought maybe you would know a little bit.
No,
I was fascinated by it. Now, this has, again, been a few years ago, and I've talked to some other people that live in Texas, and they're like, yeah, it's great. We love it.
Okay.
And so, there's this power plant that is natural gas, and I guess that they have these huge filters that catch the carbon, so then they burn the carbon, and they catch it, whatever is left, apparently.
Okay.
And, so I'm like, it can exist, apparently.
Sure. Well, it's similar to the nuclear plants.
Yeah.
Okay. The old school nuclear plants, like we have in this state, are not nearly as efficient, not nearly as clean, if you will, as the new style nuclear plants, where they use a molten salt type of medium.
I've heard that.
And literally just constantly reburning, if you will, reacting the uranium or whatever it is that's in there, and using it until it's so spent there's hardly any waste left. But somehow that's not green, even though it emits zero carbon.
Why do the people relate a nuclear power plant to a nuclear bomb? I'm sure you've come across that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Because when they go bad, they go really bad. But that's only happened.
only once in Chernobyl,
Right.
because
Well,
even
there's
3 Mile
And
Island,
then Japan.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, with the tsunami,
Yeah.
But that's twice in thousands.
Yes.
Thousands of nuclear plants around the world.
So, and then how many people have died putting up windmills?
I have no idea.
Quite a few.
Yeah.
I don't have the
Right,
numbers
right.
exactly, but
Yeah.
quite a few.
Sure,
And there's all these other things that, again, the whole picture.
right.
We have to look at everything.
Well, and let's talk about, we did a show on, basically inflation and shortages, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're about to possibly have a food shortage. Well, what would contribute to that? Well, think of all the good cropland we've taken offline because of solar panels and wind farms. It's taken, you take a couple thousand acres of cropland out in what is the most productive area in the world.
And the efficiencies of farming. When you throw a road down
Absolutely.
the middle of these huge acreages, it destroys a lot of efficiency for these farmers. 'Cause
Yeah.
They have to go around all these access roads.
Right.
So, but that's
It's so many layers that people don't. They see these headlines and they hear these things and solar, there's zero emissions. That what?
Yeah, it's funny how the people that argue for solar and electric cars, which I'm not opposed to either. Okay, I'm totally fine with all of them as long as it's a fair market
Right.
that's bringing them about.
Right.
Okay, but let's talk about solar and car and the electric vehicle. The same people that are arguing for those generally argue for human rights. But where are we mining those minerals from that go into those batteries and those solar panels? Where are those solar panels being manufactured? They're being manufactured and mined in the most awful of conditions with slave labor in a lot of instances,
which is why it's cheap.
which is, trying to make it affordable.
Yep.
But where's the outrage with that?
What do you mean those mines are? I mean, I don't see that on the news. So I mentioned in a previous episode that I get to a lot of airports. On occasion, the flights are delayed or even canceled, of course, right?
So you get to watch Fox News then.
So I get to watch Fox News and get just totally inundated by this whole right-wing propaganda.
Don't
of
most
everything,
airports
right?
run
I
CNN?
think that's the sarcasm
Yeah,
part.
CNN.
CNN, yeah.
That like contract, which the airports, that's a different podcast. But so yeah, CNN is in the airports. So I'm sitting there. I decided, I haven't eaten today, so I went to this restaurant, and of course, because there was flight delays, there was many of them. So the restaurant's packed. So I sat at the bar, and what do you do when you sit at the bar? Have conversations with the person next to you, right? Because you're shoulder to shoulder.
Yep.
So this guy is talking to me, and we start swapping life stories and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, hey, where are you headed? And he told me. And then it led to what he does. Well, he is involved in security in these mines.
In the battery mines?
Yes, in the
Precious metal
what's that? The precious metal. What's the name of that big?
Oh, there's nickel.
Precious.
There's all kinds of.
It's that.
There's lithium. There's.
It's a lithium one.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. And so that's what they primarily mine lithium out of this, where he is not in charge, but he's a high up in security.
Mm-hmm.
And so he pulls out his cell phone and starts showing me security videos of what they're doing in these mines and stuff. And he said it is the countries don't care because they have no laws. All they want to do is line their pockets. They don't care about all these people coming in, and they're getting literally workers are being murdered and all these things, and they're trying to provide security. And so this stuff is literally happening throughout the world. And as you say, we're okay with that.
Yeah, somehow. I'm not, but
No,
right.
like as the Green New Deal and a lot of these people that are pushing that agenda.
As a nation, somehow we've decided that that's going to be okay for now.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I believe the Biden administration quite literally decided that they were going to close mines down and stuff in the United States in the last year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in Minnesota. They pulled the permit for polymet up in northern Minnesota.
Yeah. So what good does that do for the green? Do you think that we manufacture things just a little bit better than some of the other places in the world?
Well,
and safer and more clean?
That's the epitome of NIMBY. Is closed, and I'm okay with them not mining that area. I love the boundary waters. I would hate for anything to affect the boundary waters, but that is the epitome of not my backyard.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so many of the loud voices in Rochester scream that all the time.
Yeah.
That is also pushing for all this stuff. So.
It's interesting that they won't have the conversations like what we're having. I mean, I literally have records of people saying, no, I won't have a conversation like that with you.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, it's because it's so politically charged. People don't want to have an honest debate and just talk about facts. It somehow has to tie back to politics all the time, and then it gets personal, and then things get off the rails. Mm-hmm. But, back to those mines in northern Minnesota, most of them are subterranean. They're not a big open pit mine. Mm-hmm. It's literally you drill a hole in the ground and you go down a couple thousand feet and then you go out from there and you mine the metals because they're down that far.
Right.
So it's like the Sudan mine.
Yeah.
That's the state park now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I wonder if they ever find the hollow earth. Do they go down that far?
I have.
That's where the Clintons
Wait,
are
that's
hiding.
a movie.
That's where the Clintons are hiding.
The thing that surprises me is people don't understand. One thing about fossil fuels is they are being replenished.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
That's the reality.
Mm-hmm.
When I die, guess what? I'm going to replenish just a itty bitty little bit of oil in the earth.
Yep.
And that's where they say fossil fuels. Well, where do fossils come from?
Mm-hmm.
Organic material, right?
Dead dinosaurs.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be a dead dinosaur someday.
It's called a carbon cycle, and it's a beautiful thing that God gave us.
It is, absolutely.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that's the conversations that people don't want to have. They don't want to actually go down and look at all the realities of what science has shown us for a very long time, is that fossil fuels are being replenished.
Yeah.
And what happens if we don't take fossil fuels out of the ground, Mike?
They turn into diamonds.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
What happens when we don't take them out of the ground? Eventually, they'll start bubbling out of the ground again like they did back when we first found them.
Yeah.
It's not like we had the capability of finding oil thousands of feet in the ground back in the 1700s and 1800s. It was literally coming out of the ground then.
What's interesting is that I do in some of the school presentations, a little segment is I talk about Mesopotamia, which is ancient Iraq. Mm-hmm. And in that, they talk about how they discovered certain things that I want to say it was 5,000 years ago, that involved oil that we literally use today. It was coming out of the ground, so they used it to make things.
Yeah.
And to burn it so they could,
Right.
So it's like literally they didn't have to drill to find the oil. They didn't have technology to do that. It literally was coming out of the ground, and they're like, oh, let's scoop it up.
Let's see what this does.
Yeah.
It's called being creative. It's something that the good Lord gave us the ability to do.
For sure.
He created this creation so we could be creative with his stuff.
Yes.
And
we need to be responsible. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be responsible. I mean, that's something.
But through all of that creativity, it's pushed us to be better.
Yes.
It's pushed us to be cleaner. I mean, the oil they were burning in Mesopotamia probably was pretty dirty. It probably, if we were all doing that today, yeah, we'd have a problem. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But we've advanced from that because of the ability to create.
And I think some of the green agenda has put, well, obviously we're burning coal cleaner and this and that. So it has pushed us to do better. Mm-hmm. And, hopefully in the future, those things become more efficient. But currently, the solar and the wind, those are temporary. They aren't guaranteed 24/7, and that's the problem.
Right.
And they haven't figured out, they haven't invented a battery that can store that efficiently without completely destroying the environment in and of itself. And our local officials praise Germany in a little bit of a rabbit hole, but they praise the efficiencies of Germany, how green Germany is. And what's happening in Germany right now? They're running 2 18-inch natural gas lines from Russia,
right?
Because Germany can't produce the power that they need from green energy, so they're bringing in huge gas lines, and I'm going to pound on our local mayor until she responds to me. Rochester, all the government facilities in Rochester, or a lot of the downtown government facilities in Rochester, get their steam for heating and cooling from the waste to energy facility, the garbage incinerator in the county. And they need some updating for some piping. And the city said, you know what? It's cheaper for us to build a natural gas steam generator in downtown Rochester in lieu of doing continued maintenance on the garbage to energy facility, which isn't that green in of itself because you're keeping garbage out of the ground. Reduce, reuse, recycle. But their solution is to build a natural gas power plant. Well, what's natural gas? It's a fossil fuel.
Yeah, I thought those were going to go away in a couple of years.
Right. So they're cutting their nose off to spite their face because they're going to save a few $1 million. I'm floored by how green our city government is, yet this is in their 5-year plan to do this. And it's just completely backwards. But, saves a few $1 million here.
Right now.
Right now. Until natural gas goes through the roof.
Because
everybody's converting to it.
Which it is.
Yeah.
And the other thing that people don't think about with these electric vehicles, we had Minnesota, we had a commissioner who was going to mandate that we all had electric vehicles in 5 years. That's all you're going to be able to buy.
Right.
Okay. Well, obviously, I disagree with that because I'm a free market person and I believe you have that choice.
And a free market will do what? It will actually, if it's needed and necessary, it will do it in the right time.
It will happen.
Right?
It will happen when it's ready. And I think we're on the cusp of technology. We're going to have batteries that are better. There's solid state batteries that are being developed right now that are going to they're going to completely revolutionize this.
Yeah.
And that's the free market working.
Yes.
And it will happen. But
that's interesting. Can I interrupt you a second? That reminds me of, I was in California and I had, so there was a house there that was for sale, right? And it had all these big solar panels on it.
Yep.
And so I started to do some digging into it because the solar panels were full of mold and mildew and all these things, clearly not working. They weren't. So when doing the research, the solar panels went on this house in the 70s, I believe it was. Now, didn't Jimmy Carter have this whole big push in the 70s for solar panels and some of that?
Yeah, there was a pretty big push. In fact, interestingly enough, we had solar panels when I grew up.
Okay.
In our house. And I grew up in an old house.
Yeah.
About 1860s vintage house. Okay. In Minnesota, there was mornings where you'd wake up and there was literally frost on the walls.
Yeah.
Slept really well. But we had a solar panel. What did that solar panel produce? It produced heat. It didn't produce electricity because the sun's energy is actually much more concentrated in heat than light energy. So if we were serious about solar energy, we'd be recapturing the heat off of the solar energy that's available rather than trying to convert it to electricity because it's really not that efficiently converted to electricity, but that's what everybody wants.
Essentially what you're saying is you could literally steam
Yeah.
Have maybe a little steam generator
To make electricity.
to make electricity off of a solar panel.
Be interesting, wouldn't it?
That
Converting something to steam with heat.
yeah, to
That
make
sounds like a new
electricity.
idea.
It's
Yeah.
pretty new.
Yeah.
Let's make one.
Something to do with trains and developing our West. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's another thing though that I was going to go to
Yeah.
with that other line was we don't have enough energy available to power these vehicles. We don't even have close to enough. Okay. If you take all the gasoline that we burn in Minnesota in 1 year and converted that to electrical energy, it's more than we use in electrical energy now. So we need more than double the capacity that we have. Nobody's talking about that, and solar and wind are not going to replace that.
No.
Not even close.
No.
And the arguments of, batteries working in the cold and da-da-da-da-da, which
They work better
depends
now in the
depends
cold
on
than
who
they
your
used
sources
to.
are.
Right.
But we live in Minnesota, and what have we been through? People sitting on the highway for 12 hours. What are you going to do when your battery in your Prius dies on the highway and you can't move?
Right.
At least with a gas engine, you can turn the vehicle on and off
Stay
to get
warm.
some heat.
Yeah.
But when your electricity's out, somebody can run you a can of gas.
Right.
They're going to drive by with a diesel generator to charge your battery till they can get you pulled out. There's a time and a place, and
Yeah.
you have to start somewhere, and I completely understand that. And obviously things have improved, but it's not the be-all, end-all. And I don't think we'll ever be off of fossil fuels. They're working on semis that are running on electric, but at what cost financially for the environment to make those batteries that are currently available?
And then what do you do with them when they're no good?
And then you have to dispose of them.
Right.
And yes, things will get better, obviously, but you can't put a timeline on when everything has to be done.
Right.
Exactly.
We can't switch to electric vehicles in 3 years in Minnesota because we can't charge them.
Right.
When I see this is what was a huge eye opener for me on electric vehicles. When the president of the United States, Joe Biden, comes in and starts talking to all the big, the big three, I think is who it was that he was talking to about electric vehicles, and doesn't include Elon Musk and Tesla in it. Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That says to me what? It's all about the money.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the
Absolutely.
environment. It has to do with padding people's pockets in the right places.
Elon Musk hasn't fallen in line.
He hasn't. Absolutely. And so that to me is where I'm starting to pay attention, right? I'm like, wait a minute. He has revolutionized, whether you like the guy or not. He has
one
revolutionized.
person.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't
And why?
he didn't
Because
invent
of
it, but
free market.
he pushed it. Yeah.
Right.
He saw the money in it.
Yep.
And then there's another issue with electric cars that people don't talk about a lot, and that's how do you tax it? Where's the road tax come from? Because right now when you pump a gallon of gas, there's road tax paid.
Huge.
Okay. You plug your car into your home, there's no road tax paid on that. So now we're going to miss out on that. Well,
they're going to, sorry.
The next thing then is, I guess we're going to have a mileage tax. Well, how are we going to do that? It's going to be a GPS tracker on your car that's going to track everywhere you've been. Okay. I'm not comfortable with that. That's a privacy issue.
100%. And that's where I was hoping you would go. We have to lean in on those privacy issues big time, because they're doing these little sneaky things like that that takes away that privacy. They want to track you everywhere.
Right.
And I've been to China, and they have a social, I don't remember what they call it, like a social credit system, essentially. And if you're bad, you don't get access to places and things.
Right.
Literally.
Like restaurants.
Yep.
So if you were...
So it's like a vaccine card.
It happens right now today in the world. If you're a naughty little boy or girl, they literally say, no, you can't participate with this in society.
Naughty by their standards.
Their standards, yes.
Woo!
It gets pretty crazy when you look at all the layers. And the problem for me is people are not looking at all the layers.
Right.
You got to look at the whole thing. I mean, it's like anything in life that you have or do. You buy a house, you got to look at all the different things. You don't just look at the roof.
Right.
Oh, roof's good. So look around. Craig?
Craig Gulan, thanks for tuning in.
Mike Marti, have a great day.
we're going to try to get Mike here again. But you're going to have to hammer the like button and hammer the share button to do that. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to this conversation that I just had. I was very honored to be a part of it, honored to be the host of This Matters in Real Life. I think it's extremely important to cover a lot of different things and topics and get people's opinions. When my daughter died in the car crash 10 years ago, I said that's what I would do. I would look at the answers, I would look at the truth, and I would make sure that they would intersect. They would not divorce each other. It's so often that we want answers that are not the truth. We want answers that are comfortable. We want answers that make us feel good. Well, there's a lot of things in life that it's not the case. So who am I? Well, I am you. I'm no different than you are. I eat and sleep and, all the different things. Same thing that you do. I hurt. I feel joy. I've had a lot of experience, probably just like you. I work hard, probably just like you. One of the things that you can do to support us is go to shinybrandmerch.com, where you'll see things like the sweatshirt that I have on. I work. I'm a full-time, a truck driver. What do I deliver? I deliver trucks. It's a little bit different of a gig than a normal truck driver, yes, but I am what would be considered a commercial vehicle transport specialist. So about 5 to 6 days a week, I deliver trucks. I get into a truck, I go 2,000 miles, I deliver it to its new owner, I get on an airplane and I go find another one. Nothing real glamorous unless you make it that way. And I've decided that I would have a lot of conversations along the way, and some of those conversations I'll be able to share with you. Again, hey, thanks for your support. Appreciate you. We'll see you next time.